Hello and welcome to Dice Punks, a tabletop role-playing podcast where we focus on playing full campaigns in less well-known systems. Before we get started on episode 3 today, we have just one quick note. I'm not sure what caused it, but there was an artifact throughout my recording in this episode that caused rhythmic, mysterious clicking sounds periodically. I think I've done a pretty good job of getting rid of them when I'm not speaking, but I wasn't able to solve the problem of these sounds when they occurred while I was speaking. Apologies if they're distracting, but hopefully they won't affect your listening experience too much, and hopefully I didn't draw your attention to them more by mentioning them here. Just try to forget about them. With that, our episode awaits.
Hello, and welcome to Dice Punks, a tabletop role-playing podcast where we focus on playing full campaigns in less well-known systems. This week in episode 3, our newly minted demigods are headed back to civilization. Uptype. Thanks for joining us. Hello and welcome. I'm Adam, your friendly neighborhood game master, and joining me are...
Hi, I'm Drew. I'll be playing Dosktier, Duke of Nothing, and boy, guy who had a day.
I'm Robin, and I'll be playing Alyssa Crate, the large and libidinous Duchess of Fury.
I'm Dez, and I will be playing Ramnet, provider of breakfast, and center of the New Orthodox Church of the Obsidian God.
Those are your roles in descending order of importance.
Absolutely. I'm not going to flirt through my church
priorities.
position.
Well, excellent. Thank you, guys. Before we get started, though, let's briefly recap our previous episode for ourselves and our listeners. Dosk, I think you have this one.
Sure. So Lissa and I met in the morning, such as it is in Fermata. The light wasn't different, but the feeling certainly was. We ate some very middling porridge and felt very confused, but soon received a better breakfast and a better course of information when we went to Romnet's place. He gave us bacon, he gave us eggs, he gave us coffee. I think it had quite an effect on all present, except Romnet, who was, of course, cool as a cucumber, I suppose. I don't know. What's cool? What's as cool as Romnet? Well, sure. Well, I suppose. Lissa very cannily snuck out so that we could invent a whole new form of social interaction, which I believe I shall call the coffee date. We spoke at length, but somewhere within the proceedings, Romnet was taken over once again by the voice of the Obsidian God, who told us that there were lights in a swamp that should not be, that we would need to extinguish. Didn't specify which swamp, but as Romnet began his workday, supplicants showing up for, I don't know, he does important work. Anyway, we set out. We got stuck at the gate, but Lissa enraged the spirits there so that it would open, and we managed to pass through. We found ourselves in the Cyanmere swamp, I suppose, if I don't miss my guess, but in quite a dark situation indeed. We saw a few lights that exuded comfort. It affected Lissa more than me for reasons that I don't fully understand, but we followed them. I had to stop her from walking straight into them, which we would soon know wouldn't have gone well had she succeeded, because the dead rose, and they themselves could be consumed by the light, but they were also full of the light. It turned out the lights were connected to some horrible being, which we fought, Lissa by making the very swamp come to life and turn against it, animals, plants, fungi, and I by negating it entirely, unmaking the monster, turning it to nothing. I don't know what I did, but I know that we were left in darkness, me feeling guilty for taking away that comfort from Lissa, even if it would have destroyed her. But of course, being in absolute darkness, we weren't lost for long, and with a single step, we found ourselves back in Fermata.
Excellent, thank you. Before we pick up with that aftermath of that single step, we have earned a little bit of experience, so I don't imagine that it will be applicable, but if you were going to spend any of it, now would be the time, and I believe this is also a good time for us to handle Romnet's experience rolls from his scholarly nature.
That is a pair of 6s, so I do that thing.
That will do it, yes. Roundnet earns a bonus XP toward lore, isn't
I
it?
believe it's actually just general XP.
Oh, well, interesting. I am corrected. It is general XP. No other expenditures coming forward. We join our nascent demigods returning to Fermata from the Cyanmere Swamp and their confrontation with that otherworldly light monster. Walking through the now surly gate that has banged open for you and your approach, you immediately notice some differences in the area immediately by the gate. Last time you were here, there was sort of this confluence of canals that caused kind of a wider open space, and the canals then passed out through the gate. There's a little grate at the bottom, and the gate itself is huge, massive, but it has these smaller doors set into it in 3 places. One over each side of the roadway on either side of the canal, one over the middle of the canal coming in, the one you left from on one side. You notice that this wide open space is no longer a neglected, disused part of Fermata, where nobody had been in or out of those gates that anyone could remember, and thus no one even approached them. No, now it's a plaza of sorts. The arrangement of the space in broad strokes has not changed, and the location of it remains the same, but it's more active, more visible. You're entering through the riotous city this time, so plenty of people and noise moving around, including some people just standing and chatting, sitting and picnicking, specifically around a raised sort of pedestal of considerable size, upon which stands a sculpture. A sculpture depicting the two of you standing back to back, looking noble and regal and ready for anything. These statues are hewn from obsidian. They're about 15 feet tall, and the details on them are picked out in what could be, in the silvery limning light of Fermata, either silver or platinum. Neither of you feels of looking at these like you have ever actually looked so flawless and appealing, but no one seems surprised that they're there. In fact, few enough people glance at them at all. They are simply making use of the plaza as you walk in through the gate, which bangs shut behind you, drawing the attention of a couple of the nearest residents of Fermata, who wave at you with smiles and pleasantries and go back to what they were doing.
I return the wave, and then I say to Lissa, does my hair really look like that?
I don't think it quite captured all of your charm. I wave back and I give them a very big toothy grin and a wink. Because of course I do.
Naturally. The toothy grin is actually reflected in your sculpted expression. The wink is not.
Of course it is.
Well.
While we're at the gate, I kind of hesitate for a moment, and I turn to Dosk, and I'm like, I might see if the gate is able to help me out a bit. When I was on my way here, I kind of left my friend in some caves, and I want to check in on him and make sure he's okay.
Of course. Do you want help, company, backup?
Yes.
Then you got it.
Thank you. He might still be a little bit shell shocked, so I don't know what all he'll want to talk about, but just, take it with a grain of salt. We've been through a lot.
Sure. Look, I'm happy to do anything I can to help, or for that matter, nothing I can to help. It's going to be difficult to learn to talk about this, but the point is, I'm here for you.
And I'm here for you too, Dosk. I appreciate everything you did out there, and I don't know if I had a chance to say yet, but that was pretty incredible. You should definitely tell Romnut what you accomplished, because I think he might be a fan.
Well, I mean, I didn't do it to impress him or anything, but thank you. I still feel bad about pulling you away from the light. I know that's irrational. I know it would have harmed you, but you just seemed so happy.
It would have been a fake joy. You'll find that I'm the sort to create my own joy wherever I end up, and I don't need a light to accomplish that.
Hear, hear.
Having finished saying that, you actually hear an unexpected and familiar voice, Lissa. Lass, you are here, good! And you turn around to see Varric, who you last saw in the cave on the way here, stumbling towards you with a very kind of basic clay mug sloshing over with something sudsy in one hand, cheeks rosy, quite rumpled and a little bit worse for wear, looking like he has not really slept or bathed since the cave, but has certainly had some drinks. But he's smiling ear to ear, eyes kind of squinting together, increasing above his beard as he approaches you on unsteady legs.
I don't seem to notice how drunk he is, and should I roll for lifting stance to give him a bear hug?
Oh no, you can just give him a bear hug.
Alright, I give him the biggest bear hug possible. I make it look effortless. I lift him off his feet and take him into my arms and give him a big squeeze and say, Varric, you made it. It's such a relief. I was worried about you.
Let the record show.
Lass, it takes more than a cave to keep me down. Oh, he taps your shoulder.
I set him down because, this is something we established a long time ago. Man can get a little bit enthusiastic, so when he taps out, I respect it.
And Dosk, you were trying to say.
Oh, I was only saying that let the record show that when this drunk man first approaches us, I'm preparing to tell him that we have to go find someone, so we don't have time for his antics right now. But when I see the bear hug, I resign myself to the fact that that was a very short search.
I clap a hand on Varric's shoulder and turn him to Dosk and say, this is my new great friend Dosk, a real upstanding fella. He's like me, but except not. As it turns out, I'm the Duchess of Fury and he's the Duke of Nothing. So you don't have to worry about, yes.
We're very much alike, except that we're completely different.
Varric gets this faraway look in his eyes at mention of Fury, and he says, "Aye, well, that's gonna be good then." Sorry, yes, Varric. I suppose I live here now. I don't have anywhere else to go. What happened, lass? We were in a cave, and now I've been here, I don't know how long, the light never changes, and, well, I guess I've been here 7 or 8 of these, and he holds up his mug.
Well, as it turns out, this place is called Fermata, and it appears in places of perfect darkness, which, we did find. You're not trapped here if you ever need to, if you ever have a desire to leave, you can use these gates and I'd help you, but I have it on good authority that there are at least 3 smithies here that could use your expertise, perhaps when you're feeling a bit more clear-headed.
He goes, oh, my head's plenty clear. It's my liver that's gonna have trouble. Swig. And then, he sort of kind of looks into the middle distance and says, well, don't know rightly where I would go after that business back in town. Didn't know what happened to you when you disappeared into that hole, but you're right, now that you mention it, I passed through a particularly dense, dark area in that cave and came out of the storeroom of a pub just down the way and been drinking ever since. So it's good to see you. When I told people that I knew you, they were happy to just keep refilling my mug.
And I
Swig.
think you'll find a good place to stay, a comfortable bed, if not a little short for my tastes, at the nightcap. Seems that we might have friends here, and this may be a good place to stay for a while until... And I kind of glance at Dosk, but quickly glance back at Varric, and go, at least until everything blows over.
He nods, again looking a little far away, and says, right, well, the ale ain't going to drink itself, and I don't plan to be sober for a week or so. So, will you join me for a pint or two? Looking back and forth between Dosk and Lissa.
I'll buy.
He waves his hand. He goes, "They're not charging me. Not yet, anyway."
Well, I think the offer
And,
just went from appealing to irresistible. A pleasure to meet you.
He waves and says, "Sure, the pleasure's all mine, son. Lissa, well, you may notice she takes a wide interest, but she seems to have a particular shine to you. And that makes you okay in my book, at least until you make me or her angry. I don't think you'd really like that very much."
To be honest, it's been...
Yeah. I quickly interrupt and say, I'm pretty sure Dosk is the closest thing I've had to family since you, Varric, so I don't think he has to worry about that.
"Well, that's good. Here it is." And he stops outside of a pub with the sign on it depicting a black mare with red eyes rearing. Nothing else in the image at all. And waves you in and says, "My good friends are in here. They keep on keeping my mug full, and, well, that's how it's going to stay for a while. So come on in and we'll get you set up with some drinks." This is a smaller establishment with a rowdier disposition than the Nightcap, and a very sort of sturdy older gentleman as the barkeep, who very efficiently, without a overabundance of politeness and friendliness, but certainly, without being like surly about it, sets you up with mugs of ale as you sit down, and Varric takes it as his task to fail to introduce you to most of the other people in the pub. He gets names wrong, he swaps backgrounds, he trails off for long periods of time, and everybody just sort of goes along with it because they seem to know how much he's had, and it doesn't take a brain genius to look at his general appearance and demeanor and determine he's had a rough couple of days.
I slip the bartender 2 coins and say, "Make sure the next one's water."
The bartender just kind of nods, doesn't really say anything in particular, but just takes the coins and goes about his business. And sure enough, the next one that Varric gets his water, you notice, because when he takes the next swig of the next mug, he sprays it all over the bar and says, "What is this? Trying to poison me, are ya? This is water! It's poison, I tell you. What time is it? Is it night? Is it ever not night?" And then he starts drinking the water again.
I look to Dosk and kind of hold my hands up helplessly to see if he has any input.
Are the rules the same here? Which is to say, if we don't stop him, at some point will he die?
The bartender looks at you very seriously and nods.
In your experience, then, how do we stop him? Does he need something more interesting to do? Swinging a hammer? Meeting someone nice?
I think both of those things might be appropriate. I haven't seen him this bad in a long time. I don't know if I told you, but Varric's essentially my father. He taught me everything I know about blacksmithing. And I think a good bout at the forge might do his constitution good.
He overhears the end of that and goes, "No, lass, no more forge. It's gone now. I can't ever get back to the forge. I wouldn't want to if I could. No, my days are behind me. My forge days, I mean. I think, I don't know, just need to... this is a soft bar," and he puts his head down on it.
I slip the bartender another 2 coins and say, "Maybe just water down the next one."
The bartender just kind of nods and says, "He's got a room when he needs it." You've paid for it. We'll get him to it. But I'd prefer if he didn't come back here in the next week or two.
I smile and say, well, if he does send him over to the nightcap, I'm sure I'll let Avine know to keep an eye out for him and make sure he's taken care of. We've both been through a time. My apologies for anything that's occurred before I got back.
He shrugs one shoulder. He says, "Milady, I keep a bar. It's fine."
And if we need to send him back from here, what is here called? The sign just has what I assume is a visual pun. Is this the Nightmare?
The Rampant Nightmare, actually.
That's better. I like that.
Really, Adam?
Oh, what's your name, by the way? You seem like a really upstanding fella.
He chuckles silently once and says, "Jack, milady."
Jack, a very simple but sweet name for a very direct fella.
I try.
And succeed.
Will there be anything else, milady?
You could just call me Lissa. I don't really invest in this whole milady thing, but I think as long as he's taken care of, don't let him drink himself to death. And I'll promise to ensure that he does not come back here and chooses to take up residence at the nightcap with me.
We fully understand that you're as invested in avoiding damage to your establishment as we are in avoiding damage to him.
Now that his drinks are paid for, I'll try to see to it that he's fine. He's in good hands, my lord, milady.
Alyssa.
Dask. But Rampant Jack, a pleasure. But the point is, it's fine. You don't have to, the formalities are not necessary.
He just stares at you levelly without response.
I just line more coins across the table, Tom. Yeah.
He nods, taking the coins, and says, "Do let me know if there's anything else I can do for you," and then goes to serve other customers.
Is Varric unconscious at this point?
Yes. Drooling,
Okay.
in fact.
I'll inquire to where his room is and just casually toss him over my shoulder, as one does. Let me know if I need to roll a lifting stance.
You do not. You get him up to his room and to the bed and lay him on his side and make sure he has an empty bucket and a bucket of water. And he's about as comfortable as you can make him.
I return to Dosk and kind of give him a shy smile and say, "Sorry about that. We'd been climbing through mountains and through caves for a while, so it kind of got the best of his perspective, I guess."
He seems to have, if I may, given up. I'm not sure on what. What was all that about his days being behind him?
I wish I could say for sure. I mean, we could always start up a new forge here. Seems like there's plenty of good work to do. There's at least 3 forges to choose from, and he's, age has had an effect on his hands, but between the two of us, we're the best there is around. So, we both have a future ahead of us.
Well, you most certainly do. And like I said, I'm here. You said he's like a father to you. I appreciate that. I've probably had 2 or 3 fathers in my life, none of whom were the man who fathered me. So I get it. It's important. And whatever we need to do to keep him safe and productive and not drinking himself to death, I'm on board.
Thanks, Dosk. I think that officially qualifies you as the brother in our weird little family.
I accept it gladly. It's just good to be something at last. I've honestly already grown a bit weary of this nothing business. Like you said, maybe we can work this out since we got our assignment done. I mean, maybe we're done. Maybe that was it.
I wish that were the case, but For some reason, I have the uncanny feeling that we're just getting started. And the uncanny feeling that I could use probably another drink myself. Not to say that I'm going to be in as abundance as Varric, but you know how it is. That was a bit rough back there.
No,
and
of course.
What you did was very much appreciated.
Of course. No, I get the sense that you hold it better and know your limits better. So of course, we've earned it.
Setting foot outside of the rampant nightmare, you are immediately, your attention is caught by a figure in what appears to be just simple religious garb, something signifying an acolyte or a neophyte of some kind. Of course, the robes themselves and the belt keeping them closed is black. But the person wearing the clothes is a little odd. They have almost a greenish cast to their skin, and dark eyes with a pupil and iris that seem too large. They have sort of an androgynous presentation and don't introduce themselves. Instead, standing very, very still, and clearly waiting on you, as when you emerge, they give you a modest bow and say, "Lord Nothing, Lady Fury, if you would follow me, quarters have been prepared for you in the city." And then just turns and starts walking, without waiting for a response.
I shout, "Lissa, please," at their back as I kind of catch up to them in just 2 strides.
I mean, it's not terrible to have a title, right? I mean, you're right. Dusk, I call.
As you follow, you're passing through sort of the crowds of the riotous city, and so a lot of people don't take any particular note of you, but those who do offer either a sort of smile and a wave, or in some cases, like a brief bow as you pass. You seem to have become local celebrities less than overnight.
Well, who's to say
just
what's
in
overnight?
your brief absence. Indeed. And you are led through the riotous city closer and closer to the manifestation, that great towering obsidian edifice, resembling if the giants of old had built a cathedral out of one solid piece of volcanic rock. You don't quite make it all the way there, but you are pretty close to it when your guide stops and turns and gestures to what you at first took for a row of maybe storefronts with apartments above them or simple townhouses, but is in fact a sizable manor taking up a good third of this block, facing the canal that leads up to the stairs of the manifestation. And they say, "Here is where you shall be quartered, my lord and lady Nobilis. Please begin to make yourselves comfortable and send word to the manifestation if there is anything that you require that has not yet been furnished. The obsidian god is not entirely clear on what it is that humans require for comfort. And beyond that, as you are not entirely human anymore, the question becomes more complicated than the obsidian god is willing to contemplate. Instead, we shall rely upon your guidance." Another bow, and then they start moving up the steps toward the manifestation.
I didn't catch your name, friend.
They pause, turn, bow again, and say, "My apologies, my Lady Fury. I have none at present." And then turns and keeps going.
What should I call you?
No response, actually. Just keeps walking.
Thank you!
Still no response.
Yes, thank you.
You're doing a great job!
Yes, yeah, bang up work, Timothy.
You're appreciated, Timothy. I'll think of us as friends.
By the time you say that, the doors of the manifestation have closed behind them.
I get the sense that you're tremendously unaccustomed to being bowed to and scraped to. And that it doesn't seem to suit you that well.
I wish I could say I was wholly unaccustomed to it, but it seems a lot of pomp and circumstance for no good reason. I'd much rather be everyone's friend, like the formalities are entirely egregious to me.
Oh, I understand completely. My family are all merchants. To them, every social interaction is a battle to be won. Precise rules of etiquette depending on who you're talking to, when you're talking to them, what you want from them, what you presume they want from you. I find it all exhausting.
Yes, politics.
Politics.
It is quite exhausting. Shall we check out our new dwelling?
Sure. I think there's at least an even chance that it'll be habitable by humans, or whatever we are now.
Yeah, I'm still human. I don't know about you, but I still have to do all the humanly things, both the glamorous and the less so.
I look down at my hands and I say, if I was ever human in the first place, then I still am now.
Is that an actual question?
No, I'm just musing. Let's go inside.
You approach the steps up to the doors. The whole exterior is made of filigreed obsidian, including the doors and apparently the hinges, which seems like a recipe for disaster. But they open smoothly and silently and with barely a tug. They open outward over the steps, so you actually have to back up down them. It's strangely hostile design. But you are able to enter into. It's not empty and bare, but it is too empty and too bare to feel comfortable. This entryway has high vaulted ceilings with columns to the left and right, and sort of a room with shelves in it off to the left and some seating. A room off to the right with more in the way of comfortable seating and a large unlit fireplace. In front of you, there are doors to either side of a grand staircase leading up. It gives you the impression of being something between a mansion and a palace, but while it is somewhat furnished and somewhat decorated, it feels as though the job only got partway done, or maybe whoever was acquiring these objects ran out of money and had to stop. It is entirely obsidian in the interior as well, walls, floors, and ceilings, as well as most of the furniture, although some of the comfort-oriented furniture to your right does have what appears to be normal cushioning on it.
I slap a cushion to make sure it is not, in fact, disguised obsidian.
It has give. Seems to maybe be wool.
So it's squishy obsidian.
And if it's black wool, I suppose.
Obsidian is truly the black sheep of volcanic rock.
I feel like we just did the whole the rest of this campaign is gonna be us seeing if things are secretly obsidian. Is this cake actually obsidian or is it a cake?
You need another bartender. You touch his face to make sure he's not obsidian.
He is obsidian. Spoilers.
That's the body horror episode. Because there will only be one of those.
A chip off the old rock, I believe, is going to be the title of that one.
Yeah. And now we're going to have a body horror episode because you said it does.
Robin.
We're always going to have a body horror episode.
Adam.
Yeah, you're right. It is Adam.
I mean,
our finger is going to turn into cats, and the cats are progressively going to take over.
No, he's already done cats to death.
Turning back to your preliminary exploration of your manor, the place does seem comfortable temperature-wise, not drafty. There are places to sit, so presumably there are beds, there are fireplaces. There are sconces and niches and even candelabra and chandeliers, again, all obsidian, but there are no lamps or candles or torches whatsoever. The light is all that silver limning that comes around objects to set them off from the background of uniform darkness.
The first thing I want to do is, make it well lit and comfy cozy as opposed to like this weird greenish bluish business that we've been dealing with.
Well, that's item 1 on the list, but you guys spend the next little while exploring the place and finding other things that you might need. For instance, the beds are quite nice and quite large. They have very expensive seeming down and silk pillows, as well as silk sheets and very fine bedspreads. They do not, however, have anything in the way of mattresses, so you will need to send for those. Otherwise, you will simply be sleeping on a very soft pillow and a very hard, flat obsidian surface.
But is the flat obsidian surface actually long enough for me?
Yes, with room to spare. You can lay spread eagled on the obsidian surface of your bed and touch none of the sides of it.
Spread eagled is my natural state.
I'm glad you said it.
Eyebrows.
Does his face.
Do you think this image will come back later? I don't know.
Foreshadowing.
Yeah. All right.
Around about the time you are putting the finishing touches on your list of comforts that you need for your domicile, there is a very loud booming knock on the front door. You imagine, however, that the loud booming quality of it comes from the acoustics of the place and not so much from the force with which the knock was applied.
Please tell me it's a Veen.
You both come down to investigate and swing the front doors open, almost knocking Evine off of the steps. She gives a look at the doors and goes,
sorry about that.
We've been over this is the thing. We've been over this. Oh, sorry. How do you like the place?
Could use a little warming up.
It certainly got character, though.
Often the way of things around here, I'm afraid. I'm glad you find the bare bones acceptable. I wanted to come make sure you were settling in okay and just let you know that if you needed anything, my offices are, and she just points to a building across the streets and canals and down 4 or 5 doors away from the manifestation. She says, I live a little farther away because I don't like to be mixing work and everything else quite so much, but you can often find me during the waking hours in this vicinity. I feel we'll probably have to be working together pretty closely. What with do you see the statue?
I was they really captured Dosk's charm. I'm not used to having a statue of me in town. Happy to see you, by the way, Evine. You're a sight for sore eyes as usual.
She chuckles and says, I'm glad I wasn't in the statue. I was kind of afraid of that when I heard about it. The statue was there. Things like this will happen from time to time. Just have to, I think, get used to them. But don't worry. It presents your best side too, and I'm glad to be of help and a friendly face around here. Being mayor, don't know, it requires a lot of practicality that doesn't come natural to me. I'm much more of a friendly person than a problem solver, So I can be both, best of both worlds. Well, if you need anything other than the furniture, which I think the manifestation can provide you, you should feel free to come and see me. Chances are good you'll be hearing from me from time to time if I need your particularities to help with some of the things around town. Take it you already met one of the acolytes. She looks a little bit uncertain.
I believe we did. I say, smiling a lot like Lissa was smiling in the statue.
Timothy, real upstanding fella.
That's his name now.
They gave you a name?
No, but we improvised.
Much as there was no furniture when we arrived. But I think perhaps, well, yes. I mean, everyone's been very helpful is what I'm saying.
She nods. She says, the acolytes take some getting used to. Really, they're helpful and conscientious. Don't see much of them, but I think they were here just always. Don't know what they're acolytes of, really. They don't ever seem to move up the ranks, but they're harmless enough. So, shouldn't worry yourselves about them too much. Be surprised if the one who brought you here responds to Timothy. Let me know, though, if they take to be unnamed. That would be convenient.
I will be happy to report back. So Dosk and I were talking about how best to brighten up this place. Your establishment is warm and cozy enough, but we'll need something to make the interior a little bit more homely and bright and comfortable in your absence.
Well, as long as you're here, I think it'll probably be bright enough.
Hey, that's what I was getting at, but about you.
She, just kind of chuckles it off and says, well, I do have work waiting on me, much as I may not want to do it. No one else is going to get to it, but I wanted to check in on you. You should have a little time. Take a day or two, get settled in. I mean, if the Obsidian God needs you, I'm sure they'll call you, but in the meantime, I've tried to instruct folks to let you sort of find your way before we start swamping you with requests for your help. From what we understand, your capabilities are pretty impressive. So look forward to seeing what you can do for the town. I'll see about getting these doors reversed.
Can I do something for you first? With your permission, of course. I've realized that I have a particular set of skills in terms of miracles.
Oh, well, if something comes up, and I'd be perfectly happy to send for you. Did you have anything in mind?
I just, I experienced coffee for the first time today, and I think I can mimic that effect.
Really? Well, in that case, you may be seeing me in a few hours when I start to flag. That would be quite convenient.
I could set you up now if you're willing.
She sort of looks considering and goes, I'd better use it at need, being honest. I've got quite a lot on my plate, but you will be hearing from me, one way or another. And then she gives you kind of a, little bit of a informal waving salute, and heads back over to her offices. You can actually already see there are people kind of like queuing at the steps, and so she goes to see what they need.
Closing the
you guys
door,
have some downtime.
I give Lissa a parodic but by no means disrespectful bow and say, "Milady of sweet talk."
Oh, what can I say? Guilty as charged.
Clearly, she's very interested, but really, it's just a skill, a guilt. It's impressive. I mean, she said swamped, and we were just in a swamp, and I had nothing. But you can't be caught flat-footed. You always know exactly what to say.
I'm never short of friends, as
for our listeners at home. Does Dosk actually talk with his hands quite as much as you are?
I don't think
that's a good question.
I don't think anyone in reality or fiction talks with their hands as much as I do. But he doesn't not talk with his hands.
I just imagine him talking with his hands. Honestly, I thought that was perfectly in character.
His hands, I'll remind the listener, the hands are in mismatched and very nice gloves. So he probably wields his hands around like you ever had someone pouring you a drink and they have like a really nice bottle and they sort of gesture with it, trying to impress you while they're talking. That's how Dosk uses his hands. He thinks he's casting a spell in his own head.
Yeah, I picture the difference between Drew's gestures, which again our listeners can't see, and Dosk's, which they will have to imagine in their mind,
Because they also
as Dosk's being sort of, sort of a little bit more on the side of a flourish, trying to be a little bit self-consciously graceful and purposeful, even if they aren't really. And so listeners, you should supply the gestures that you think fit best when you are hearing Dosk speak to other characters in the game.
I agree fully with that interpretation, for the record, and I'm glad that's coming across. And I will also say another key difference between the way I do it and the way I imagine Dosk doing it is that, so far as I'm aware, the Jewish people do not exist in Taraxis, so
This is correct.
so therefore it's not going to be quite the same, because the way I talk with my hands is super Jewish.
Yes, you will find no real-world religions directly represented in Taraxis or the larger world of Mileth. You have my promise on it. So
That's the Adam promise.
it's like it says in my commercials. So
There's even
You guys-
a seal that goes along with it.
it's very well trained. It really only even needs a mackerel after every third
As an
drink.
aside, Adam,
Uh,
at some point you will, as a closeout, need to make one of your ads.
Yes.
Oh yeah.
we will see.
We have to get into the Lovecraft DM lore at some point. The lore of the Hollyhock god.
Yeah, we've made reference, but do people have any idea what the hell we're talking about? Probably not, and that's maybe for the best for now, because they'd go crazy if they knew.
Yeah. It cannot be fathomed without losing one's sanity.
You guys are hyping this up an awful lot. I think
mean-
the expectation is not going to match the reality.
It's fine. Sanity can be measured, as you know, in absolute value.
It's a
You-
it's a Boolean. Yeah.
Returning then to the foyer of your manor.
Yeah. I kind of pause for a moment after, Dosk hypes up my sweet talk, and I give him a considering look and then say, I've been thinking a lot about the swamp animals, and, part of Fury is being furiously happy, and I just really want to try that. Like, I don't like making just things angry all the time.
Sure. No, of course. I as you're talking, I realize the implication, and the eyes are back to dinner plate size at least. I say, that seems most certainly worth trying. I don't think I have an equivalent trick, unfortunately.
Oh, I wasn't talking about miracles. I'm sure you're more than capable of that.
In a perfectly mundane way, certainly. But I mean, furiously happy. I mean, look, I've never been called miraculous, but I do fine. You seem to do better than fine.
I think you're doing a great job of being pretty miraculous, if I do say so myself. Maybe we should find our friend Romnut and report back to him.
I almost convinced myself that I am not blushing.
All right. Well, Romnet is easy enough to find as Romnet, you've pretty much been swamped.
That seems to be the theme.
You've got to come up with, I guess, a synonym. You've been keeping busy with, not necessarily like a line out the door, but you have just enough time to do things like grab a bite to eat and, sort of refill the pitcher with fresh cold water and, just little comforts and small tasks in between supplicants arriving. This is a slightly busier kind of quote-unquote morning into midday. Not, again, that there is any real correlation with the quality of light, but the city has established its own rhythms. And it starts to drop off a little after about lunchtime. Having been only a little busier than normal, and hopefully being busier in the morning means you'll be a little less busy in the afternoon, but you hear a subsequent knock on your door.
I go and answer it.
And here are your two supplicants.
I'm standing behind Dosk, pointedly.
What do you like?
The conquering heroes return, I say grandly.
And what did you end up conquering? What were these lights?
I conquered nothing, as it turns out, but Dosk was incredible out there. I'll let him share exactly what it was he accomplished.
Well, that's true. She conquered nothing but nature itself, but we'll get to that. What I did, I must say, was relatively remarkable. You see, the lights were mere appendages of some monstrous, unknowable thing, and I fully made it not be anymore. The nothing powers. I managed to sublimate this monstrosity which exuded lights and could raise the dead
Sorry,
into
back up. Raise the
a
dead.
Non-existent. Yes, of course. I skipped over some things. Yeah.
Maybe take this chronologically.
Sure. Well, we left you. You had people, visitors, important things to get done. We went to the gates. Alyssa is downplaying how helpful she was getting the gates open. We got the gates open and we found ourselves in a swamp, the Cyan Mere, I think, but it was hard to tell because it was completely dark. And we saw these lights and we followed them and they were strange. This is something I meant to ask you about, actually. The lights seemed to exude emotional light. They seemed to make you happy in a way that was meant to ensnare. I didn't know light could do that.
Well, if it's attached to a creature.
Sure.
I mean,
like a.
Hey, Adam, shall I roll lore to know anything about something that might do this?
I invite you to try, yes.
That is a pair of 5s.
It does not sound familiar. You definitely have heard tales of various types of, you might almost call them hypotheses for lights in the swamp with no obvious source. Your will-o'-the-wisps and corpse candles and things, but you don't really remember ever hearing about this kind of otherworldly being, not even as a hypothetical explanation for lights in the swamp.
Okay. I will mention that, but, at the same time, why wouldn't something from elsewhere tailor its bait to its prey? That's a known survival strategy, or, well, feeding strategy, I suppose.
Feeding. Well, indeed, I suppose, a Leviathan angling for, well, us. But anyway, it didn't successfully angle. It angled, but it didn't catch us because we felled it. I didn't think it was possible to fell it. I didn't know that it was, really, and now it isn't. I keep skipping the interesting part.
I interject and say, Dosk literally unmade this thing. It was just breathtaking and an accomplishment in all definitions of the word. Dosk, take it away.
Can I roll charm?
Yes, you certainly can.
Yeah, and let me specifically Grace's, I think, because I hope the listener has enjoyed Dosk floundering to talk himself up.
Do you have Fascinate?
I do not have Fascinate. I have just about everything, but I don't have Fascinate or Plead, but the rest I got. Lie is not especially useful. The truth is more interesting. Just will find other uses for. I think this is a Grace's role.
Yeah, so this would imply that you are trying to be especially, eloquent and proper in your sort of performance of the retelling.
The goal here is to make this the story of how I went into the woods and came back a knight, right? That's how it should sound if I get this right.
All right, well then you have 5 dice.
Okay. That is a pair of 4s.
Which turns into a pair of 7s, because that is your minimum charm success as a striking sad boy.
Striking sad boy.
About that.
It's on the character sheet. You're going to hear me say it. No, I was saying you're going to hear me say it because it's on the character
Because it's
sheet.
the name of the damn... Yeah. I regret nothing. Please continue.
And well, you shouldn't. So yes, you managed to sort of turn the details version of this story into something of a courtly romance in the original sense of the word, a story of gentility and adventure. It doesn't start off sounding like one, but it smoothly builds into one, such that by the end, you and Lissa coming back to the city are triumphant knights returning, your centrality to the story having been established by proving yourself in this test of metal. And even with the detail at the end that a statue was erected to commemorate the event, that you could witness coming back into the city to this day. Never mind that it was erected on this day. And yeah, you finish feeling that you have impressed at least an abstract theoretical audience.
My face is fixed in what I think of as a gallant expression, which is well, you know what? That's for you to decide what that means, dear listener.
I mean,
we abstracted it with a roll.
I am charmed, but I am
applaud.
internally thinking that I should probably not give you coffee again. I do not, however, say that. That all sounds very impressive, and I'm glad that you're both safe and that you've returned and done as the God in Darkness demanded.
But?
I suppose that did sound like there was a but coming. That was not intended, I apologize.
I mutter under my breath, I hope there's a but coming.
I will just give you sort of a sharp glance and then, like, whose side are you on, really? And,
I love can I just say, the contrast between the courtly romance and then that is just chef's kiss. Just, yeah.
Yeah, no, we're operating on a variety of levels here, folks.
Here we are.
The difference between high culture and low culture has always just been reputation.
But it all involves eyebrows.
And money.
And money. Definitely money. It all involves eyebrows.
At the end of the day, there's always eyebrows.
I will relate, I had a busy day of petitioners. No particularly interesting prophecies that I recall. Feel free to correct me if I'm wrong, Adam.
No, you had a lot of very specific, local, individual, one person's life advice to give out. And as is often the case with these things, it tended to be the sort of thing that you could probably arrive at without an oracle, but especially in the metaphysical capital of the Obsidian God, there is something that seems to comfort people about seeking the guidance of this prophet when they are worried about the outcome of a thing, and so you are able to provide at least that.
And I understand that there are statues of you now. As if I had learned of it before the recounting of your knighthood.
I'd like to think they don't quite do the tale or the man justice, but yeah, it would seem we've been immortalized twice.
I would say that they don't wholly capture Dosk's in-person charm and gravitas. Do you agree, Ramnot?
Ramnot, really? That's okay.
Sorry.
We'll assume you said it properly in character.
Yes.
No, that was not an in-character neg.
Not. Lissa employs many tactics. Negging is not one of them.
Yeah. Lissa, in an alternate universe, was instead of studying under Varric, studied under Rushvi.
left him in that fucking cave.
Yep. He is sleeping with the blind axolotls now.
Axolotls are very cute.
It's true, they're adorable.
Don't leave him there.
Yes, but they
But then again,
subterranean ones live eyelessly in
and also we've
waterways.
established that you
But
think
they're
that vultures
adorable.
are cute, so
Have you seen
That-
vultures?
I
They
am
are
not disputing
precious.
this. I'm merely pointing out that being cute doesn't keep something from being able to strip the flesh from a human.
I mean, that's part of the cuteness.
Fair.
Yeah. Those two categories have never been mutually exclusive. At any point.
Yeah. Well, I don't think the statue quite captured Dosk's charm and gravitas. Don't you agree, Romnit?
I think that it would be very hard to capture, and I am just sort of looking at his face, a little bit out of focus, but a little bit smiling. It would be hard to capture his essence in mere stone.
It's a brief in-canon speechlessness.
I'm just grinning.
I mean, oh, what the hell? I have a Master Die and Fascinate.
So you do.
So, it's a pair of ones already. So 3 1s becomes 3 7s.
That slot machine's liking you. Yeah, so...
Getting a lot of mileage out of being
I mean-
ornamentally pretty.
quite. So, Dosk, your 2 7s on Graces are answered with 3 7s of Fascinate. Would be the mechanically abstract shorthand for this, but yeah, you're definitely soaking up some flattering interest raise from the prophet of the Obsidian God here.
So do you have, like, night duties?
I give Dosk a look.
With or without a K?
Well, I would assume the chivalric kind are the way you conduct yourself in all circumstances, but I more meant, do the supplicants come at all hours, or do you have a period during which you're left alone, should you desire to be?
It's mostly during what other trades would consider business hours, but the bolder or the more urgent in their own minds issues are brought before me approximately whenever.
And what if there's no issue more urgent than, mine?
How may I assist?
Remains to be seen, I suppose. Again, I can no longer convince myself that I am not blushing. I think that calls for a jest roll, because otherwise I will explode. I think I Dosk.
Right.
And then the campaign's over because we're all dead because Dosk exploded.
I like
What a
that
way to
you're
go, though.
ascribing to Dosk like that level of destructive capacity and explosion.
I think so. Yeah, I mean, there's
Psychokinetic.
a tremendous amount of potential energy. So-
I was gonna say maybe he would implode.
Yeah.
It would just be
Swallow all
Implode
of
into
them.
nothing.
nothing.
Yeah.
A black hole.
Yeah,
That-
this is how stars are born.
This also makes me think of that XKCD what if about, glass half full, glass half empty,
Oh, sure.
with the vacuum in the lower half of the glass.
Mhm. Yeah. Those are the physics of what could happen if this roll doesn't go well. So let the record show I didn't like what those 5 dice were doing so much, so I'm going to use these 5 dice.
all right.
That's 3 2s, which
Which get elevated to 3 7s.
Yeah.
Your joke is delivered with flawless execution and timing, conveying exactly that emotion that you want it to convey.
I feel like it's cheating the listener to not make some attempt to say what the joke is. So let's.
I assumed you had already made it with the.
Sure. No, I probably have.
That remains to be seen.
Yeah, sure. No, that's the jest. But yeah, but it's more charming when he says it than when I said it.
Yeah, we can none of us be our imaginary fantasy universe selves. More's the pity.
That's the appeal.
I mean, I think it's definitely for better and for worse, but yes.
Sure.
Uh,
I think I require your expertise as to exactly what sort of help is needed, but I don't think there can be any doubt that you and I have a great deal to talk about, and indeed that I've got some talking to do.
Yeah. While you two talk, I think I'm going to go find one of those smithies.
okay, so looking at sort of our timing so far, if there is something Dask and Ramnet that you need to say in character to each other, that is fine. Otherwise, this may be a good time to begin a little bit of time lapse, as it were, because Evine had promised the two of you a couple of days to get settled in. And so you have as much time within that at a chunk as you want to just kind of narrate what it is that your characters get up to or accomplish or not. So we'll start with after you exit Ramnet's front door, Alyssa, do you in fact go in search of a forge?
Oh, absolutely.
Right.
And I chat up whatever first one happens to come across my radar. I chat up the owner and mention that I have some experience and have another expert blacksmith here with me. If that's looking for work, and see if they could be in use of my services.
Charm plus graces for 5 dice.
Oh, wow. I don't know if I should go with 3 4s or 2 9s.
In this case, probably 2 9s because you're not in a hurry.
Yeah.
So 3 4s would mean that, you were able to sort of like establish a rapport quickly, whereas 2 9s would indicate more of a, sort of meaningful connection here. You and the owner of this particular blacksmith's forge, who I suppose I now have to create, get on famously. He actually reminds you a little bit of Varric in the sort of broad strokes. He's a stocky man with a beard. He's younger, though. Good sense of humor, just like Varric, but a little less gruff, a little bit more, not exactly refined, but very graceful conversation, as it were. You get along like two houses on fire. Not that this forge would ever be so sloppy as to catch a house on fire. And after the first couple of exchanges of pleasantries and things, he actually goes to work while he talks to you. You watch him work. He's good at his work, and he invites you to work. And you should probably actually roll student blacksmith. So 2 dice and then a master die once you've rolled, set to whatever you like.
Okay. 2 4s.
All right. You maybe don't, floor him with your mastery of the craft, but he compliments you on your solid work and on your sort of concentration and focus on what you're doing. And says, if you are sure that you would like to help out in the forge, he adds in a lady there, then you certainly are welcome to, and he'd be happy to, have your introduction to this Varric person whenever they were available. And sees you out of his shop some hours later, probably approaching what passes for evening around here.
Do I manage to convince
friendly.
him to call me Lissa instead of Milady?
He will do the thing that Kea did at the nightcap and call you Milady Lissa. He sounds chummy enough. It's not like he's holding himself apart, but he won't drop the title.
I tried.
You did. So I'll have to name him and his forge when next we visit. This forge is, I should note, in the Quiet City, which you haven't spent as much time in.
Can't it be in the brightest city? Pretty please.
No? No?
Forges make lots of noise.
Weirdly enough, while this one makes a lot of noise while you're working at it, you actually couldn't hear it from that far off. And moreover, in this case, while forges are noisy, they are also industrious. And you may have noticed that the drinking establishments that you've seen have been in the riotous city for the most part. But if you're actually trying to get work done, a quiet city tends to be a better place for it.
Okay.
So that pretty much sees you to, evening dinner time on that first day. During those hours, Dask, Romnet, big picture, what do you guys get up to? Is there anything you needed to discuss in character, or can we just kind of summarize?
I mean, I think that we stopped dancing around just trying to impress each other and establish a mutual attraction and possibly an interest in dinner together. See where things go from there.
I think that's what happens.
Sounds great. Yeah. So, I guess about right on at the time that Alyssa is departing the forge, Dosky will end up, departing from Romnet's place, feeling fairly full of good feeling and satisfied, and with significantly less tension than you had going in. And if there, for either of you, is anything in particular that you want to do between, this dinner time on the first day and bed the next day, now is the time to float it. Otherwise, I'll just assume that you are putting together your place and maybe exploring the city some.
That sounds fair. I am definitely going to try to light up the manor a bit as a small act of defiance.
So you manage to light it up a bit. But here's the thing. You actually get quite a lot of lamps and candles and mirrored stands and torches. And the place never seems like it gets to be as bright as it should. It's like the atmosphere inside presses back against the light being cast from all of these light sources. It's an improvement, but you were hoping for more.
I would also certainly come to see the manor.
Mm-hmm. Perhaps that could be, the following day when you get a bit of a break. You can, come and see. You arrive as the personnel that Aveen promised are showing up to reverse the doors and have them open inward instead of outward, and thus not knock people off of the steps.
It could be so useful.
And Dosk and Lissa.
We weren't really thinking in terms of defenses so much as not knocking our friends into a wall of obsidian.
I suppose that's fair.
I have at this point forgotten that we already have a date and I don't have to impress him, and I probably try to bring out the most obscure piece of lore about obsidian that I have in my back pocket. So I guess that's a roll, yeah?
Yeah, that would definitely be a roll. Let me click to the correct character
Knowledge
sheet
plus lore would be 7 for me.
7 dice, yeah.
It's more than me. Yes, hello, cat.
Top tier cat noises.
I mean,
Furious.
Honestly,
cat.
I think we have our candidate for the Obsidian God right here.
Yeah, I support that 100%.
I can see Farius as an avatar of the Obsidian God.
Yeah.
She does seem to consume the light around her.
You, dear
She
listener,
does.
cannot see the absolute blackness of this cat, but yeah.
The absolute blackness that is only punctured by 2 radiant eyes.
The abyss
It's a
stares
look.
back at you.
Mm-hmm.
So,
As it grooms
Right.
itself.
She continues to be very ladylike.
Indeed.
people always cut that nature quote off too early, in my opinion. So I have 3 6s and I have 2 9s. Speed is sort of the essence here. It's a quick wit roll to a certain degree, right?
Mhm.
So therefore, I'd go for the 3 6s. Am I understanding the mechanic right there?
Yeah, you may not pull as obscure a fact about obsidian, but it's also subtle shades, and I'm not going to be able to tell you what the most obscure fact about obsidian is. I have already kind of tapped out my knowledge of it, in describing it for this podcast. So
I rolled pretty good. That's the in the most abstract
I'm just
terms.
thinking of Adam now going
Moreover,
and doing research on obsidian for later use.
You have to.
The listener does not know which campaign I'm referring to, but we were playing another campaign where a bomb was built at one point, and I had only much too late did I remember to open an incognito window as I was researching what you might be able to make a bomb out of. Anyway, please continue.
I mean, that only protects your history. It doesn't protect anybody looking at what you're searching.
Snooping, yeah.
Yeah, I can also quickly read from Wikipedia and be like, the inhibition of atomic diffusion through highly viscous lava explains the lack of crystal growth.
Well, there you go. What more needs to be said, really?
It's been used experimentally as surgical scalpel blades. Did you know?
Does not surprise, actually. It's absurdly sharp, and this city should be much more dangerous than it is, actually.
Yeah, how often are there
walk through it and you get cut.
Sharp external corners to buildings? Like,
extremely rarely.
Good.
Yeah. So, moreover, Drew, I would go with the 3 6s because they are 3 6s, and that's metal as hell.
I mean, yeah, you're right. How dare I even say anything else? Yeah.
So you pull out the fact that the only natural source of obsidian known in all of Taraxis is the river bend where Selvin lies in the Seru River. There isn't any active volcano nor evidence of one, but it seems that there must have been at some time for the obsidian deposits there to have formed. And it would have had to be a long time ago because there's quite a lot of soil and geologic growth over it now.
I will smile and nod, not like I am humoring him in the sense of like the facts, but more in the, well, that's really interesting, and also you've already impressed me.
Yeah, Dosk does not ever know that he's passed the audition. Dispositionally speaking. Okay, so we welcome you in.
Excellent.
There is presumably more decor, more furniture, maybe some rugs, some mattresses by this point, and most of it needs to be positioned or sort of moved to its intended place, as well as the doors being hung, and eventually you find yourselves back in the foyer, the doors having been hung correctly to open inward, the workmen gone, and Romnet, you don't get commandeered like you have before, but you do receive the kind of Nostradamus-like scene that you sometimes do from the Obsidian God, accompanied not exactly in voiceover, but by the sense of some words. You see a semi-familiar coastline and a city behind it as the sun goes down. Night falling over the city, and you see fires lighting up along the coastline and lights further back in the city, and you feel immense hostility and an urgency.
Are these like warning fires or like things burning fires?
Seems to you like a party.
I will convey that message as best I can.
Your best actually turns out to be pretty well because it's, you are a prophet. And
I'm used to this sort of bullshit.
A slice of prophecy, yeah. So not only are you good at it because this is your job, you also have that kind of noetic quality where the knowledge comes with the best way to convey it, at least according to the source of the knowledge, Mott in this case. And immediately, upon hearing Romnet's description, Dosk, you know what city this is. This is Calavan, the largest and most important city in Traxxas, situated just down the coast from the Cyanmere, where you presumably were not that long ago. You feel already, upon hearing this, that tug that you felt towards the lights in the swamp. You can feel now where it is that you must go.
Yeah, I convey this information that I could I could just about not only do I feel the tug, but I could roughly locate on a map where we need to go.
Yeah. In fact, this would actually, I know you just rolled lore, but this would actually be another good time to roll your lore.
I just love rolling lore, so sure.
I think it is your largest pool, so.
All right. Always with the 6s and 9s. Hang on, let me just make sure I'm not interpreting this correctly. That is 3
That's
9s.
tricky. Ooh.
Yeah, so you actually...
I'm sorry, let the record show. I'm sorry. 4 9s.
Nice.
You, upon hearing this description, you instantly know you have actually been to this before. This is the annual festival of the Fall Fires in Calavan. There's not really a specific purpose to it, but when summer is turning into fall, the days are getting decidedly shorter again. The city of Calavan puts on this quite phenomenally dangerous, even in a city mostly built of stone, festival of fires. They build bonfires along their harbor, and then people in the town light every candle and every torch and every lamp. And kind of they have something a little bit less like Carnival and a little bit more like a county fair, family-oriented, kind of midway feel to it.
A festival of pushing back the dark.
Yeah, it's very much about observing the shortening of the days and the coming darkness of winter, and sort of holding them at bay with these fires symbolically. Your education, actually, especially with such a good role, leads you to believe that this was probably like an ancient harvest festival of some kind in the days before Calavan was a trading city, when it was smaller, more agrarian. But as far as you know, nobody who really participates in it thinks of it as having anything to do with the harvest now. It's just their fall festival, as it were. And if you have been keeping track of time the last little bit correctly, it should actually be coming up soon. Though you couldn't say exactly how many hours are between now and this festival.
So I convey all of this, and I do it in whatever way I think Robin's going to find most impressive in terms of tone. But halfway through, I catch myself trying to impress him again. I remember not to have to. I chill ever so slightly, and I simply share what I know.
Have I ever been to Calavan?
You may have passed through, but you probably haven't
Okay.
stayed.
Yeah, I will mention that I've
Yeah.
at least been there, but it's been some time.
Mm-hmm.
Have I been?
You
I probably
might,
have just heard of it.
You might have if you were like bringing shipments to market or something, but it's just as likely that, yeah, you've heard of it. You probably met people from Calavan, but it's even odds whether you've ever actually been.
I don't think I've actually been.
Yeah, the region that you're from is not particularly far from Calavan, but it also isn't a place where people tend to travel too much. So yeah, you have your next task before you, and not really a certain calculation of how long you have, nor necessarily a clear metric for success. You just know where your attention is being directed.
I guess we should go. We can talk to our friends at the gates again. Or my friends.
No point delaying, I suppose. I'd like to think they're my friends too. This is an aside,
Yeah,
but I
there-
absolutely thought, Robin, that your video had turned off because you are in near absolute darkness right now, and it is
Yep.
very
Yep.
on theme
Let-
for the game.
Oh, yeah,
let
no,
me
I
turn
can
on
see,
You totally
like,
don't
a
have to.
vague
It's just
impression.
like, yeah.
Like, if you
No,
get
it's great,
closer to your camera, like, it'll probably get, like, horror movie footage.
Yeah,
Ooh.
for
There it is,
for
yeah.
a good minute or two, I thought that you were doing a bit because the things that were showing up for me were like the bottom of your left arm and your left palm, and then just your forehead. But your forehead, the part of it that was lit up, looked like sort of the bottom of your chin. So I thought that you were doing this in your chair and like trying to see if we would be worried about you.
No. But that is very much in character. So I'm glad to know that you're. I appreciate the frequency with which my friends are either assuming that I'm dead or that I'm doing a prank.
Well, and had you not then responded when it came time for you to participate directly, I would have been like, do we need to check on Robin? But I was going to give it until you proved actually non-responsive.
Well, I thought you were
before I
still in
got
the
worried.
channel, so I thought you were just like, something was up and you would turn the video off. I don't know. Yeah, first thought was
Let me
not,
turn
oh,
on my
she's
light.
dead.
It's not that dark in here. I just want to phrase that.
Yeah,
Like,
no,
it's
it's-
comfortable. It's like a comfortable gloom,
Comfortable
but it's not
gloom.
as dark as it appears now that I left my little post-it note. I'll be right back.
Comfortable
Yeah.
gloom will be the next bar.
No, that will
I
be the
exist!
band.
Hey, welcome.
You
there we
fully
are.
exist.
There we are, yeah. Congratulations on your reincorporation.
Thank you. I was briefly one with Mott, and let me tell you that stuff gets really dark real fast.
No trouble believing it. Okay, so
are we sleeping a second night in our manor and getting started in the quote-unquote morning, or are we planning on just kind of like, grabbing and going?
I'm a fan of sleeping in the manor because that's the only guarantee I have at a bed that's, appropriately sized.
yeah, I second that motion.
Fair enough. Yeah, so you have a relatively peaceful, if now somewhat less stressless evening, as you have a job ahead of you. Do we want to spend the, sort of dinner and evening hours as they were in any particular way, either of us, or any of us?
I will find excuses to stick around for dinner.
Yeah, I think, given the circumstances,
Mhm.
the three of us dine together in one form or other.
And I would also check on Varric at some point and let him know that I'm...
Mm.
Yeah. Point of
Going on a
order.
mission?
Well, that's true. Yeah. But point of order. Did we set a date, Romned and Dusk, and am I breaking it in order to go, prepare and then for duty to call? Just losing track of
We
the
have an
timeline.
agreement that there will be a date. There is not a date for the date.
Good.
I suspect
Okay.
it's one of those where once I, give you your marching orders, like, all right, when you get back.
Sure. Very good then.
Varric, for his part, has slowed down, but has not moved on from the I wish to be drunk and into any sort of state of I wish to sober up and do something. He has moved to different bars and tap rooms in the riotous city, but it seems that word has gotten around that he is a close companion of the Duchess of Fury, and so he should be looked out for. And so people seem to be doing a pretty good job of it, at least in the broad sense, where they're making sure that he doesn't get into trouble and then he has a bed to sleep in. But he's mostly left to his own devices otherwise.
I provide winsome smiles and coin where applicable, and just kind of let him know that there is a forge waiting for him whenever he's ready, and obliquely request that he not reveal too much information for both of our benefits.
He is not as enthusiastic about the prospect of a forge waiting for him as you might wish, but probably only about as much as you would expect, realistically. The request to be circumspect, he meets with perhaps unreassuring levels of enthusiasm. Oh, of course, lass, of course. The soul of circumspection. You won't be seeing me say anything unnecessary ever, ever, ever. Of course not. And it leaves you feeling a little less sure than you were that he could be counted on to be discreet. But he does seem a little bit more with it than he was, so hopefully this is progress.
Good. He gets another bear hug all the same.
Another one he has to tap out of, this time protesting that you are attempting to break his ribs. And that could be the only explanation for the unwarranted force of your bear hugs. But he says it fondly. You also have discovered that when you are taking meal times in your manor, that acolytes simply bring you food. It's never a case where they take an order, but they haven't in the 2 nights brought you anything that is wholly unfamiliar or unpalatable or that you don't know how to eat. And it all seems to be pretty good. Very pleasant. Perhaps, especially for Lissa, a little bit richer fare in the sense of, a wealthy table setting, but it's not ortolan, it's, still recognizably food to you. It's just more of it prepared somewhat fancier.
Sorry, ortolan?
Do we see Timothy?
It's hard to tell. They are not terribly distinct from one another. And to answer your question, Des, if I have my food folklore correct, ortolan is the, I want to say French preparation of poultry that is so decadent that you must hide your face from God to eat it. Goes the story. You have a little towel or napkin over the plate that you then drape over your head to consume it. I think the actual explanation for the drapery is to preserve the aroma. As
that
is
is
but
magnificent.
it's
and
supposed to be immensely decadent.
Excellent.
In any case,
how is the entree? Oh, God must never know. I've never heard that bit either. That's fantastic. Okay.
Again, I think a lot of it is apocryphal, but it's still very entertaining.
And it's also on brand.
Yeah, true. So, dinner is lovely. Now that your beds have mattresses on them, they're actually extremely comfortable and welcoming, and especially there's something about it now that you've been in the manor for a couple of days. It still feels odd. It's very big, very cavernous, less empty, but being in an all obsidian house is odd. It feels more homey when the lights are out for the night. Something just, it's like a certain friction is gone from the environment once you have settled in to sleep. Again, reminder that I'm using things like evening, night, and afternoon figuratively to describe the stage of people's waking lives that they're in, because the quality of light, or should I say the lack of quality of light, never changes.
That was going to be a GM type question, I suppose. How are we sleeping, right? Is it taking a toll that nights are basically hypothetical?
So far, it's a little awkward. Once you have fallen asleep, you seem to do fine, but the lack of change in lighting does seem to take away your body's cues that this is awake time, this is sleep time, and it feels like you're a little unmoored. You find it hard to mark the passage of time, except by the rhythms that the rest of the residents of Fermata seem to just intuit in a way that has yet to come naturally to you. But
is there anything like a water clock or any other sort of non-light derived timekeeping device?
Yeah, you could have, certainly there would be some water clocks, and maybe particularly long-running hourglasses in the city. Nothing, no mechanical clocks, no spring-driven or similar, but there are ways of keeping time. It doesn't seem particularly necessary for most residents.
Well, this is more for
have a rhythm.
in-character planning purposes. If I do notice any
Sure.
difficulties on Dusk's part with time.
Yeah. Again, it's one of those things where it feels weird to try to go to sleep, but once you fall asleep, you actually sleep very well and wake rested.
And good that
I'm
we
just
rested up
grateful to
before.
have a blanket that covers me.
Your feet have never been so warm.
Don't have to worry about the monster that eats your feet if they dangle over the side of the bed.
Yeah, I don't know if I made this clear before or not either. When I was describing the size of Lissa's bed as being especially capacious, Dusk, your bed is the same size. Like, it is not sized down to you. This is just the size that beds of this manor are.
You would not mention that, and that's fine. I'm going to make the character choice that Dusk rolls a lot in his sleep, and so every night's a journey.
Got to stay in shape somehow.
Get the exercise where you can. Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. So, not exactly morning, but the time of awakening comes, and you prepare to set out for Calavan. Are you making any particular preparations, or just trying to step through the gate to where you need to be like last time?
Just stepping through the gate for me.
Yeah, I think so. Those the only thing on my side is those domain miracle points that I spent unmaking the monstrosity. Those are not coming back until we reach the end of an arc, right? Like a couple nights sleep doesn't give me any of those back.
Correct,
Okay.
unless you take steps to regain them. And exactly what those would be is still obscure to you at this point. They will not refresh naturally. Think of it as being like a monthly resource.
That's fair. Yeah, I also probably
it
don't
won't
even
always
know...
be precisely a month.
I probably only have even only the most abstract sense that something is gone or like not available to me, right? Since it's the first time I've ever done anything like that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, and both for our players and our listeners, you can shift around miracle points. Like, if you needed to, you're like, oh, I have 5 spirit miracle points that I may not use. You can spend those at a rate of 2 to 1 to use them in another form of miracle. So, like, you probably would have some... If you went to use a miracle that required you to use more domain miracle points than you had, you'd have some sense that you were tapping reserves to do this, but in character you would not necessarily have the precise sense just yet.
Sure.
Lack of explanation and lack of practice and experience leave you a little bit directionless, but as a player you may still avail yourself to all the mechanics. It will just be Dusk learning the ropes as he goes.
Do I have time to drudge up something comical to put on my statue? Since we're going by the gates anyway.
I guess that depends on what exactly you're looking for.
Silly hat, a flower crown, maybe just draping an obsidian flask in my hand. I don't know.
Okay, all right. So let's have you roll your sense plus sight, so 2 dice to try and scrounge something up.
Rude.
I'm not the one who put those points where they are.
3 and a 6, and since I figure we're not getting to whatever's going in the city of Caravan, I'm going to have Lady Luck smile upon me.
All right, so yeah, you may re-roll for luck.
Save it for the most important
for future
roll
reference.
Yeah. 2 6s!
2 6s, excellent. For reference, that's the city of Calavan with 2 L's.
Oh, whoops.
Yeah. No, it is fine. I have not spelled it for you guys so far.
Playing
I'm a very
Calavan ball
visual
with this
person.
roll. With this lore, am I right? I'm sorry, I'll shut up.
All right, 2 6s. Actually, you are sort of rummaging around, seeing if you can find a silly hat, and you find yourself headed sort of toward the back of the manor. You spent some time back here, but it's more of like access stairs and, just sort of the infrastructure of the place further back. But you catch a window that you hadn't bothered to look out or maybe even noticed before, and you see that the manor has a garden out back, not a huge one, but it seems to be nicely kept. You haven't seen all that much plant life in Fermata. It's been maybe non-zero, but you certainly haven't seen anything like a garden so far. The silver light kind of shining around each object in the garden illuminates in the middle of the garden a circular raised bed of these three-petaled silver flowers. The flowers themselves, the stems and leaves are a dark green that looks black if you're far enough away, and the petals are this sort of gleaming aluminum foil silver, where they sort of twinkle in this, silver limelight. And they would probably do very nicely for a garland.
I make a garland out of them, thinking it would be a little, like, a funny way of downplaying the fact that there's a statue of myself, but
Yeah.
also potentially unwittingly starting up a tradition.
You quickly apply yourself to making this garland. The flowers themselves are very cooperative. They have enough rigidity to sort of put pressure on each other to keep the shape of the garland, but enough flexibility to be easy to work with. And if you sort of have to tilt the head of the flower with the petals on it, in a particular direction, it's not quite like pipe cleaner, but it does tend to sort of like hold where you move it to. There's almost a metallic feeling to them. And in short order, you have a rather lovely crown of silvery flowers woven together, just in time for Dosk to also be ready to head out. Dosk, are you trying to gather up or bring anything in particular?
I'm not sure I have anything to bring at this point.
Sure.
I think if I spend any time, it's just having another conversation with Ramnet and assuring him that we'll keep our plans when I return from this venture. Mm-hmm. And again, I try to say it as though I'm a knight departing for some event, for some quest of great portent.
I will
Most wonderful.
offer assent to, yes, of course. I look forward to your safe return.
Dusk and Lissa, you are meeting up near the statue. Dusk, you walk into the plaza just in time to see Lissa clambering down from the top of this 20-foot statue, having placed this flower crown on her statue's head. There is something a little bit goofy about it in the broad sense when you look up at it, but it also just kind of looks dramatic and badass.
If your secret is safe with me. If anyone asks, they did that. You didn't.
I knew I could count on you.
The gates beckon.
They beckon this time.
Not literally.
Okay.
Yeah. I chat with them again. I give them a reassuring talk about how I don't want them to be angry. I want them to just feel, connected, valued, and used as their purpose as gates. Not at all neglected, not angry at the world. I don't just create anger, I can create furious happiness too. And in fact, I think I'm going to do a lesser creation to make them furiously happy to help us to our destination.
Okay, so the lesser creation of Fury Miracle is automatic for you. I would also like you to roll Charm plus Graces. That's just 5 dice for you.
Damn. We took very different approaches to our social skills, the three of us.
True.
I got 2 7s.
All right. You feel like you managed to inspire a kind of excitement and, passionate frenzy this time, although the effect, from an outside observer standpoint, is still that 2 of the 3 gates bang open with such force that they bang closed again, but it's not as angry and sharp a sound this time. and then the same one as last time does fly open and stay that way. Whether you do or not, were you to shift into the site that you discovered in your confrontation with the creature of the swamp last time, you would see that the tutelary spirits, sort of overall posture and demeanor has changed as well to be less sullen and less surly. But
I think
every
it did
bit
a
as
better job of
energetic.
it this time. I kind of say that leaning into Dosk, and I'm like, I don't think I just have to make things angry. I think I can make them happy too.
You put it into practice. Furious happiness.
Furious happiness. My motto, what I live by.
And you guys step up to the gate. You step through the gate. You take that step into the darkness. You feel that brief falling sensation once again. And you find yourself, you think, in the exact same spot in the Cyan Mirror that you were deposited last time before you started walking towards the lights. You have a bit of a walk ahead of you. If you are indeed in the Cyan Mirror, you see no reason not to believe that you are, you aren't that far geographically from Calavan. But it's not going to be easy going.
We feel the pull.
You feel the pull. Yeah, you have the direction unerringly in your heads and your minds. And you are arriving just as the first gray light of dawn is breaking through the trees. And honestly, compared to last time, it's quite peaceful, even beautiful. The Cyan Mirror is a river swamp. The water flows through it slowly, but it moves. It doesn't get as decayed and as pungent as a fen or a mire might. The trees themselves are large, ancient. They have not lost their verdure as the year moves on. Animals are settling down, and so there is not that much motion or noise. The waters themselves are slow enough moving to appear still to a casual glance, and so very calm on the surface. There are all kinds of plants growing in the spaces where the trees let sunlight in, particularly on the water. And you can see that the sediment deposits between the trees and kind of connecting them are making a variety of loosely interconnecting pathways that you can follow without, if you play your cards right, even getting your boots wet. And so you do. And you head off toward Calavan to see what you can do about this fall festival of the fires at your Imperator's behest. That feels like a stopping point. It was not quite as far as I was imagining that we were going to get, but I think perhaps this is the point at which to adjourn for today. If we're
Sounds
agreeable.
good to me.
Yeah, it's not a dramatic cliffhanger, but it's a good like chapter break.
Yeah. We had some respite from the festivities in the swamp last
To have
time.
one where we're not harried by anything monstrous is other than Dask's anxiety. That's it's a nice change.
Yeah, no, a respite from that interpersonal tension we've been cultivating. Also, as an aside, I'm totally going to be getting you a water clock.
What do you get for the demigod who has not everything, but yeah,
a water clock?
No.
You get a water clock.
Really, Drew. What do you get for the demigod who needs nothing?
Ooh, there it is. It was right there.
That was it.
Yeah.
Well, we'll certainly stick around to do a little bit of our post game in a separate recording here. But in the meantime, that concludes this session of Dice Punks. Thanks for joining us. I hope our players and listeners enjoyed it as much as I did, and that you'll all join us again next time. If you're hearing us now, then you probably know where to listen to this, but we can be found almost any place one can listen to podcasts, as well as on the wider web at dicepunks.com and on Twitter as @dicepunks. With that, I think we're ready to say farewell. So say goodbye to the kind folks at home, players.
Thanks for listening. Dusk, got a date.
Yeah, we appreciate you. And remember that if you want, you can anger people just as much as make them happy.
Well, thank you for listening. And as Dusk was so excited about, Dusk got a date.
Indeed he did. And as the poet once said, Tiefe Wassers sind nicht still.
Thank you, dear listeners, for tuning in, and stick around through the admin stuff. There's a Dusk fact waiting for you at the end of it. Be sure to tune in again for the next episode of Nightfall, due out on June 15th, for our character's first visit to a real Taraxan city. The songs in this episode, theme of the Dice Punks and its acoustic version, were written and recorded by the Duke of Nothing himself, Drew. Cover art is by Joanne, who will be behind the scenes for the time being, but played Rue the Gremlin in our Psionics one-shot. Site design and graphics for dicepunks.com are by Robin, the player behind the irrepressible Lissa, the Duchess of Fury. Rain and the one roll engine it runs on were created by Greg Stolze, whose work can be found at, well, a frankly astonishing number of cool places, but I'll point you toward gregstolze.com. Nobilis was created by Jenna Caterin Moran and can be found alongside much of her other really intriguing work, both in and outside of tabletop role-playing, at afarandsunlessland.wordpress.com/Nobilis. Links to both systems and authors can be found on the Punk Grimoire section of our website, dicepunks.com. Thanks so much for listening. If you liked what you heard, well, that's reward enough on its own, really, but if you're so inclined, you can help us out by rating and reviewing us wherever you listen to us, telling your friends who you think would like us to give us a listen, and even by heading over to our Patreon at patreon.com/dicepunks. We have fun rewards available to backers, including a patron-only Discord, and access to the Dice Peaks After Show for episodes 1 and following. Regardless, we hope you'll tune in again, and until then, remember, subtlety is for cowards.
So, dear listener, while I was settling in, I did meet a lovely denizen of Fermata who told me about an eatery that once existed but no longer does, called the Mirror Skiff, a sort of a supper club and a pub, or rather two, on a boat, or rather two, in the canals of Fermata, with a floor made not of simple mirror, but of a series of mirrors and clear glass plates, such that one could dine with one's parallel and look them in the face while doing so. It was founded by two sisters, Lily and Lana, and it was incredibly popular, but it began to be frequented by twins, foreign princes named Alexander and Philip, who would always dine on opposite sides and simply stare at each other and never order anything. It became known as the Skiff of Narcissus instead, and became enveloped in a royal scandal of some kind. I'm not clear on the details. But anyway, you can't eat there anymore. It's a task fact.